Um, as I explained before class, our focus now would be kind of like improving the toolchain that we have, right? And one of the things we want to improve is like the sort of code that we were working on right now here, which is like right now we're using the HTTP module which is built into Node to get the request, right? So we create the server, and then once the server is created, we start listening for any incoming requests, and then we, respond based on the request properties. But as you can see, there's like a very clear pattern to the code that we're writing, which is like we have these blocks which handle each particular request, right? And we haven't gone too much into it, but yeah, like when we had to handle a post request which had a body, then we needed to add like this special like listen for special events to interpret the body, and then of course figure out how you want to handle the body. Right? This part of like qs.parse body, this is going to be very common in you making any kind of request. This is not so much different from what we've done over here, which is like we're saying, okay, this request has to be passed as a JSON request. You kind of need to tell the middleware, which is making the request, what exactly it should provide to you. Uh, what we're going to look at is Express, which is meant basically, like you can read the description, Node.js web application framework. It's a minimal and flexible Node.js web app framework that provides a robust set of features for mobile and web applications here. And it's like fundamentally, it's not very different from the HTTP module that you use. All it really does is make it much faster and convenient to do the same thing. So if you look at the getting started sort of thing, right? So I think installing, you guys know now, it's you start a Node project, it's again, and then you install Express, right? That's the installing part. That is not going to change with any Node module pretty much. If you look at the yeah, for every project. Yeah. Babel depends like if you want to write an ES6 or not. So I would say yes. Basically, use the same, like the template which I had linked you guys to, the Marcos template. So if you start from that, that will contain everything to begin with. So you start from that, then you install Express or other things, and then you keep rolling. So if you look at the very simple code for Express, you can see, okay, there's a require, which will do import instead. Then you start an app. This is like http.create server. That's the equivalent. And then look, yeah, now you expose the server as a variable, and then you add methods onto it. So you don't have to wait for the server, the app to hoist. Express is going to take care of it. So it is more reasonable with, okay, what needs to happen when. It gives you a better way of like implementing, okay, this, after this, after this, after this, because that will be a part of like how you handle requests. So this is pretty much like the code that we've done so far, except you would start to have like more of like app.get, app.get, app.get at different, what do you call, addresses you would be listening to. Right? So let's just start with it. Go to desktop. tree. I'm gonna copy the code. Two. Before I should make a. But maybe I can just copy it here. What should we call this? This starter. Okay, we have. Yeah, okay. I copied the wrong thing. Nice. The things inside. Yeah, I was thinking where did the bubble go? It's taking this much while because now it's also copying the node modules, which I should have ignored, but fine. Sorry? I don't want to copy the folder, I want to copy the things inside the folder. So like it won't create a part2 subfolder inside the Express starter. It will just take the contents and move it inside. Everything in the part2. Everything. Yeah. But now, yeah. Let's just it's also copied the. Okay, it hasn't copied the Git folder. That's good. So we'll do npm install Express and save because we want Express to be there's no dash dash Express. We want Express to be saved into this project. If you look into let's open Sublime here. Look in package.json, you should see Express available as dependency. Express is a dependency, whereas Babel and NodeMon are dev dependencies because Babel is used to compile our code. But once we have the dist folder, you don't need Babel anymore. So in production, you would be just hosting through the dist folder. So you don't need Babel in production. But you need Express because the app would be running using Express. So this is installed. Right. Now you guys have to tell me what I need to do in order to convert this into Express code. Both Express. Both Express. Like so. Import star. Import star. And do you guys remember the reason for using star as Express? What's that? Yeah. So what sort of a thing Express is? What data structure? Let me just fix it once and for all. I don't need to do word wrap anymore. It's an object. That's why you could also use also particular things and then the key names from within Express. Let's comment it out for now, but we'll keep on looking at this piece of code. So let's yeah. Maybe I'll move this to the right hand side. Yeah. Yeah. So if we look at it, so yeah, start is equal to Express. This is a little bit weird syntax because you know Express is working almost like a class in a way, and you're creating an instance. New Express. Yeah. But no, like unfortunately, Express has given you only this sort of syntax. And I think the reason for it is that you can only create one Express app ever. Because if you did new, that would mean you could create many instances of Express. So I don't know the reason exactly, but that's my understanding of it. Then we will do app.listen. We'll add the request later, right? And then the port 8080, and then we'll again do a console log of when it starts up. Yeah. So what you usually do is like you fix the port, and let's say that's 8080, right? And you just use it over here as well, because then you also want to like console log for yes server. You will need templates. So we'll start it. And let's look at our PowerShell. Okay, we didn't start anything. Then server. To the one. Then, yeah, it didn't give us any message because it's not built yet. This is not message. No, this is only, it's not there yet. It's just showing you yeah, version here. I don't know where exactly. Let's just go. Oh, I think it might have got to do the way that it's imported. It could perhaps be, let's see, not an object, and then that's why it's not very happy. I'll just follow the syntax for now, and I'll figure it out in a bit. What might be the right way to do this? Just a second. Yeah, because it wasn't updating. Yeah, so now it works fine. I can try the previous syntax. Yeah, okay. So because Express is a function, you cannot import everything inside and call it Express. It's already named Express. Yeah. So there's a little bit of trickery sometimes. Fine. So okay, our app is. Oh no, it actually. Yeah, it didn't actually recompile because it's saying that that's an error. So we actually need to use the syntax. You can see that Marvel has said that that's an error. The syntax doesn't add up. Yeah, fine. Yeah, okay, so it's converted it now. And then the same way we have, we're looking at this over here. We can do over here. So app.get and then the URL.
Get after the defining the port.
No, I mean you need app variable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you could do it after defining the listen. Yeah. So let's see. Sorry. It needs a request and response. So then it's basically the same thing. Just to yeah, that's why I use list.send because I'm so used to using Express. List.send. Yeah.
So send means right.
It's like res dot status code 200 dot end with this thing dot write something dot end. So it's really taking care of like a lot of things here. Sorry.
It's like saying right on the end.
Yeah, and send can also take status code inside as well. Yeah, it's quite versatile. We'll discover the API shortly. So if you go here now, that's fine. This is fine. Then let's say we want to port add contact. Right? So the thing is, we want to receive a post request for add contact. That is defined by just doing app.post instead of app.get, which means that you don't have to do a if statement inside it. Okay. Yeah. You can also define a same function for which can be used at both get and post in several ways. One is like you're passing a function as an argument, so you could declare it on top and then make both get and post use it as a argument, right, as a named argument. I think otherwise there's also like I think app.method and then you say okay on these methods use this function.
When we was creating the first, there was
Yeah. Where like in here?
No.
Yeah, but then you're making a request. Now you're receiving a request. So then you decide what the request is going to be. Now you're responding to okay, if at this address I get different kinds of requests.
Because here we are in the server side.
Yeah. That's what. So are you guys clear with what it means to be working with the server? Yeah. This is where
No.
no.
I'm not.
Okay.
Can someone explain it? what does what
Yeah. Can you explain?
Like you are getting updates when you log in.
Okay, what does it mean to be a server and what does it mean to be a client?
Server is like it kind of meets your request, kind of serve you when you when you put in an input,
Yeah.
kind of gives you what you request.
I think server is meaning to work with database and the data, then send it to the client again.
Yeah, but I
Just
mean,
see what
a server doesn't need to have a database. Like
yeah.
the main
But server can work with databases, but not the client side.
pretty much, yeah. But yeah, the thing is like server is where the service lives, right? And client is just a window into using that service. So a client could be you from the command line making a request, or a client could be you using a browser to make that request. But the end is like you're just demanding something from the other side. It's like like a shop. When you have a shop, like on one side of the counter you are there as the customer, and on the other side of the counter there's the person who's gonna deliver the service to you. That's the client, that's the server. And I mean, like client and server is also like a terminology coming from restaurant basically, right? Client is you serving on the table, like I would like whatever this chicken dish, and like okay, let me go and get it from the database, and the person bringing it to you is yeah. Except the server doesn't move so much in our case. Yeah.
Like if you take a flower shop, you go in as a client and say, I want this bouquet. And then they go inside the room and prepare it and come out and give it to you.
That's what I meant. You can't just go there and get your flowers.
Yeah.
You need to ask the server to get your flowers.
Yeah, basically, and the place where the flowers are kept is basically like a database or source of data or whatever it might be. Yeah. Now the thing is, exactly like in like a shop scenario, it doesn't mean that the communication would only be one way. That if I go and you're the guy selling me the flowers, I tell you, like I would like a flower, and then if you don't say anything, we're not gonna be able to do business. So basically, it's just saying, like I would like a flower, so you would say, okay, I have all these flowers. That's like the response, right? And then I'll make another request based on that, and then you'll have another response.
Can we say that the client, the server is the bridge between the client and the data?
Yes, but it's not only that. In most apps, it is that basically, like in a traditional thinking about an app. But yeah, you don't like, for example, like if you have like a chat application which doesn't have a database, but all it does is like you want to send a message to him. I just sit in the middle. You tell me that tell him hi, and it's like I get hi from you and I throw it to you. And in that case, it's a bit inverted because then you're making the request. I'm giving you a response saying, I will do it. Or I'm saying, okay, wait a second. And then I make a request to him. Mr. Solomon says hi to you. And then you say, okay, I got it. And then I'll send the response back to you saying, okay, Abdul Rahman says he got it. Like there could be different ways of going about it. It's mostly that the server is enabling you to use the service. That's pretty much, that's where you have to go. So it has a fixed address, and that's where you ask for things. Yeah. And sometimes the server can also ask you back. For example, like if you think of a laundry service, right? So you went to the server, you gave your dirty clothes, and you're like, okay, I would like them clean. The guy said, okay, fine. Then sometime later in the day, you get a phone call, whatever, it's ready to collect. And then, so that's like not you calling every half an hour saying, is it ready to collect? And, the server saying, yeah, like, yes or no. And, you have to act. Sometimes the server will also send you request. That's why like we have the HTTP module in Node, which is to like get requests from the client, but we also have request module in Node, which is to send requests. And you don't usually use it to send requests back to a client, but you usually use it to send requests back onto other servers, which you might be using internally. But of course, you could use it in many ways. So that's what exactly is happening here. Like the client is telling you that I want to get the index of your service. I want to look at the shop front basically, and this is where you tell what this thing is doing. So you could say this is the web server index, or you could say this is the contacts app, or something like that. You could also send a HTML file which contains the link, so the user can understand what all they can actually do on your app. But now if you look at like a post request, that's gonna be like quite similar. Yeah. So just yeah, wait. Copy this part. Yeah, that's where it starts, right? Yeah. Let me just do add contact, and then we have the request and response again. Yeah. Now the thing is, we don't need the if statement. Let's just try and pretend that we have the body of the app already. Yeah. You won't indent. We'll come to it.
We don't need the data, the chunk.
We might, but let's just see. Now we see that we're in Express. So this is the hello world example. Now we're going to the guide, writing everywhere. Okay, error. Let's look into error handling, and yeah, also using middleware maybe. So yeah, so you can see that you can do res.status and .send in case you have a error. So for example, we'll do that here. Right? Res.status and 500.send, and then the message underneath. You can just send the error straight to the user. Yeah, you'll see like what happened. Also, we have an error over here, and I think we're gonna do the same thing precisely there. We can also actually, I'm gonna remove. Yeah, I'm gonna remove console logs because there's another way of doing things. So over here, it was gonna be 401 error, and then we'll send it as well. Yeah. So if you see the what we'll have in Express is that before we handle the request, we can say that before you actually you arrive at the point where you know what the request contains, and then you just want to compute the response on it. You can use middleware, which is to say that when a request is coming in, you can add layers of processing before your application logic works on it. All right. So, for example, this is like the most generic like error handler that there is, which is to say that whenever there's any error, you will console log what happened in the error and then send a message back to the user. Right? No, because the thing is like it finishes over here. Yeah. Here, you mean? Here? No, okay, yeah, here we need to do return. Yes, that's true. Because that's, we don't want the rest of this stuff to work. But let's go piece by piece. Yeah, you can attach other handlers for different kind of errors. Next, oh yeah, you can do next. Default handler. That's coming down to. So, if you remember, like over here, we were logging each time there was a new request. We are doing a request.method, request.url. But right now it won't do that because we don't have any, we just message when the app is started, but like over here, we didn't send any information about what kind of request we were getting. So if you see over here, like we're not getting any sort of logs. And, it's nice to get logs and analyze based on that, what's exactly happening. So that's where, like, that could be a simple middleware to do that, which is to say that this would run each time there's a new request. So app.use is for that. Yeah. What's sorry? Yeah. I don't think you would know that now. I'll just explain it in context of this example. I think we can do the same. I think the EPA is quite much the same. So we do this save it. So we'll start it. So now when we go over here and we do a refresh, I think we need to call, we need to call next. I'll just explain it as what next. Yeah. So if you see that the request is hung, it's spinning, that basically means that the client has made the request, it has touched the server, but the server is not sending anything back. The client has made the request. Okay, let's. I won't show you. If you look at the network, let's start again. Why is it?
Can you check if you're on the server?
It shouldn't matter. This should be there anyway. Yeah, there's no favicon. It's fine. Try be enough. open a new tab. Why?
Try to check the back after 80 if what comes after 80.
No, I'm doing it at the index, so just that much is enough. The thing is, it's if yeah, but it should have shown a request over here, but it's not for some reason. It's fine. But okay, like fine, like you can see that the request is being sent, but nothing is being responded, and that's because we were writing a middleware, and the middleware is like basically layers that you add in your application, right? And they could be for several different parts of your application. In this case, we're adding a middleware to the HTTP server part of our application. So in Express, things happen like pretty much like one after other when you start defining middleware. So if I add something over here, this will happen before if I write another middleware over here. Yeah. And so the thing is, like, in order for Express to know that you're done doing whatever you were doing, it gives you a callback.
So next here is it like end?
Yeah, next is basically saying that fine, like I'm done. Like whatever was happening here is done. Yeah, it's a callback.
Yeah.
So you need to call that callback, otherwise you will just. Yes, it's only for this context. Yeah, so you see now the request was made, and it took 1.7 minutes in which it was mostly doing nothing, and then the data was sent in like the shortest time. And that's, and if, yeah.
Next doesn't exist. We didn't need the next one. We didn't really call back.
We did now here. Here. It's a parameter of use. I mean, it's like a callback. I know the function does something. It basically keeps on Express moving on to the next thing. You're not sending anything on to next. Sometimes you can use next to raise an error as well if you get an error in middleware, for example. But yeah.
Why do you need
Hmm?
Why do you need to use that?
That is here. Now we have this because now we're doing a console log.
Each time you request a path.
Yeah. So it's like you're adding layers into the request processing mechanism. Let me just